So what is hosting? Simply put, hosting is when someone is offering a private room and access to shared facilities in their own home to a person or persons in need free of charge. And this is just a temporary measure of support and to provide a safe place for a person fleeing from the war in Ukraine. What hosting isn't, and this is very important, you are not expected to provide your guests with meals and clothing. If, however, you are considering giving away your clothes to a charity shop, for example, it might be a good idea to ask your guest if it would like to take some of the things that you are giving away. Hosting is also not the payment of transportation costs. You're not expected to cover your guests' expenses or their travel costs. If you have an opportunity to, your guests will have an opportunity to travel to your home for free within 48 hours. So we will cover the cost of the flights from the Ukrainian border to the airport nearest to your home. And then they will have 48 hours to travel to your house as well for free by bus or by train. And you might want to suggest that they get a rail card, for example. However, we talk about this in our sessions, in our webinars for Ukrainians. Or you can suggest that they use buses instead of trains to save on travel expenses. Of course, if you're traveling in the same direction, you might want to give them a lift, but that's not expected of you. And if it simply makes you uncomfortable, you don't have to do it. And generally speaking, as a rule for this program, you don't have to do anything that you're uncomfortable with. And we'll talk about this more in the second information session, but you need to set out your boundaries and communicate really clearly what you like, what you don't like, what you're expecting, what you're not expecting, so that your guests know how they're expected to behave in your house to minimize the risk of conflict. Hosting is also not casework or legal support. You're not expected to provide legal support to your guest. You can direct them to services that might be able to provide legal and immigration advice, but you're not their caseworker, so you're not expected to deal with that for them. You're also not expected to pay for your guests' phone top-ups or pocket money. Some hosts choose to give the thank you payment entirely to their guests. However, this is not expected of you. And if you do wish to do that, you might want to think about how that would affect their ability to apply for universal credit, for example. You're also not expected to attend your guests' medical appointments in a chaperone role. You may be able to help them by directing your guest to the most convenient medical center and their registration portal, but you're not expected to chaperone your guests to the medical appointments. Sometimes they might, if they don't speak very good English and if they're not very familiar with the system of how things work, pointing them to the nearest GP surgery and helping them fill out the application, and also maybe providing proof of address would be a huge help. But anything other than that is not expected of you. And you're also not expected to be their therapist. So you're not expected to help your guests process their trauma that they may have experienced. And you might want to think about, again, useful services that you could direct them to, as well as setting up a comfortable arrangement and clear boundaries to make sure that your guest has sufficient alone time to process their emotions and seek the help that they might need.